Less than 24 hours till CFL Free Agency hits. It'll be 10 a.m. on Tuesday, Edmonton time. Dave, there's a lot of big names out there, although some are getting signed today. But there are some important positions I think that the Eskimos have to look at. General Manager Ed Hervey has done a terrific job so far signing some of his own free agents, but there are some holes to fill in his roster, and I think probably the biggest hole right now is at that cornerback position.
Yeah, I would say so. With the futures of Pat Watkins, for example, being up in the air, they got to fill one or two spots. John Ojo, I think, jumps right off the page because he likely will be available when 10 a.m. hits on Tuesday, so he's got to be at the top of the list for sure. Now, how is he recovered from that ruptured Achilles? That's a big question mark. You got to think if he's healthy, he's going to be in demand. Another name I would put out there is A.J. Jefferson, who plays for played for the Toronto Argos. I think when you talk about lockdown corner, that is definitely a guy that fills the bill. And the thing about an import DB or an international DB, you're not going to have to break the bank for one necessarily, even the top guy. So I think there could be money available there.
Staying on the defensive side of the ball with, I think maybe the future of Donnie Ramasian up in the air. He is not signed as of yet, as free agency is about to hit. Maybe the Eskimos are looking for a guy at that Canadian defensive tackle spot to work with Eddie Steele.
Well, I think of a guy by the name of Jabbar Westerman, who was drafted as a defensive end by the BC Lions, but they moved him inside, and he's been pretty effective as a D lineman. So that's one name that I think of. Another name that maybe is a little bit off the board is a Michael Clausen, who is a product of the University of Calgary, playing for the Montreal Alouettes. Suffered a very serious injury in 2015 in the very last regular season game here in Edmonton, but he picked up 21 tackles that year. Only played 7 games last year. So, but that could be a name that could be available tomorrow as well.
Let's go from the defensive line to the offensive line. The longer time goes by, the more it appears that D'Anthony Batiste either wants to test free agency or the Eskimos don't have a lot of interest in bringing him back. That means that's a pretty big hole to fill at that offensive tackle spot. First and foremost, the name that jumps out at you is the number one offensive lineman in the league last year, down the road in Calgary, in Derek Dennis.
Yeah, and he's also the reigning most outstanding lineman in the CFL, which means he wants to get paid, folks. And the thing about that, and you're right. I mean, he's the number one O-lineman on the board. A lot of teams have spent a lot of money already, including the Eskimos. Now, if the rumors are true that they have asked certain players to take some pay cuts to free up some money, you got to think Derek Dennis is number one on their board as well. When you look down the list, it gets pretty thin after that. I mean, Landon Rice out of Hamilton. I'll even throw in Thaddeus Coleman, for example. I know the Eskimos really thought highly of Coleman. That's a possibility too. But yeah, Derek Dennis has to be on top of the list.
And no one says you can't circle back to D'Anthony Batiste too after a few days into free agency. A couple of other positions I want to touch on quickly. Kick returner. Troy Stoudemire came in late last year. He has not been re-signed. He's going to be a free agent. He might be in the mix, but that's a position the Eskimos need to fill and they need to upgrade on from the last couple of years.
Well, it's likely going to be a lesser-known name that comes into training camp, other than if they do re-sign Troy Stoudemire. Jaleel Smith is a former Ottawa Red Black. Jason Moss has some ties with him because he was the offensive coordinator there in 2015. Jaleel Smith hasn't played a lot, but he's a capable returner because he's played that position before. Then after that, you're looking at someone from down south like we have seen numerous the past few years. So we're probably looking at an unknown.
Sean White has been re-signed to kick field goals, but Grant Shaw has not been re-signed. They might be looking for a punter. Yeah,
the scuttlebutt that I've heard is that Shaw probably won't come back or won't be asked to come back, and that they'll try to find an American punter on the cheap. There's a couple of punters out there. Brett Maher, who has about a 45.9-yard average from last season, and then Anthony Farah, who played with the Montreal Alouettes, about a 46.5-yard average. So that's a possibility. You can sign an American punter and you don't have to break the bank for him.
Free agency begins Tuesday morning, 10 a.m. our time. The picture's kind of muddy right now, but it will get cleared up as we go through the deadline and throughout the day on Tuesday. Keep it right here on 630ched.com, plus on the air on 630ched as well for all the details on free agency.